The three functions in a previous video, Countif, Sumif, and Averageif, are really useful, but a lot of users complain that they allow only one criterion. To remedy this, Microsoft added their plural versions, Countifs, Sumifs, and Averageifs in Excel 2007. Now you can specify multiple criteria for counting, summing, or averaging. By the way, if you haven't watched the video on the singular versions of these functions, you should probably watch it first to see how to use concatenation for the conditions. The syntax for these functions is shown here. The Countifs function requires pairs of criterion ranges and criteria, and the ... means that you can have any number of such pairs, one pair, two pairs, or as many as you want. The Sumifs and Averageifs functions have a slightly different syntax than their singular counterparts. Now the first argument is the range to sum or average, and it is followed by pairs of criterion ranges and criteria, again as many as you want. This actually makes logical sense, because the number of criterion pairs is not fixed. And you might ask why Microsoft didn't change the singular versions to have the same syntax. The reason is simple. This would have broken a lot of existing spreadsheet models, and users would have complained loudly. Here is a typical example that shows some of the possibilities. There are 72 students, male or female, of various ages with exam scores. As in the video for the singular versions of these functions, there are criteria to the right. I will have conditions on gender, on whether students are old or young as defined by the age cutoff, and whether exam scores are high or low as defined by the exam score cutoff. Let's do some counting. For example, how many males have high scores? What about females? These are Countifs, and concatenation is required for the second condition. I will create a copyable formula so that the answer can be found for each gender. There are 3 such students of each gender. How many males are young and have low scores? What about females? These are similar Countifs with 3 criteria, and 2 concatenations are required for 2 of the conditions. Here are the formulas. Now the counts are 13 for males and 16 for females. Let's find the sum of the scores for the old students by gender. This is a Sumifs with 2 conditions, female and old. Remember, however, that the sum range comes first in the function, and then the criteria. Now let's average the scores for the young students by gender. These are average ifs with two conditions. Again, remember that the average range comes first, then the criteria. So the young females average a little lower than the young males. Finally, let's find the average age of the females with high scores. Now the average range is the ages, and the conditions are on gender and exam scores. So the females with high scores are slightly older on average than the males. Now that you know these very handy ifs functions for counting, summing, and averaging, you might ask whether there are other similar functions for summarizing a set of numbers in various ways. For example, is there a min-if or a min-ifs function for finding the minimum value of a set of numbers subject to one or more conditions? Unfortunately, the answer is no. The if and ifs functions discussed in this video and the previous video are the only ones available, at least for now. We can only hope that Microsoft will add others in future versions of Excel. They would be very welcome.